live abroad. But what happens when entire nations suddenly say, you're no longer welcome? In a shocking global shift, 10 countries have just turned their backs on British immigrants in 2025. Not quietly, but through official bans, blocked visas, and mass deportations. We're talking about places where Brits have lived for decades, raised families, built businesses, now giving them 30 days to pack up and leave. Why now? It's not about individual people, it's about power, payback, and post-colonial politics. From Asia to Africa, Europe to the Middle East, governments are rising up to say enough, and the UK is in their crosshairs. Some call it justice, others call it diplomatic warfare. But for thousands of everyday people, it's suddenly a race against time. And no, it's not just war zones or unstable regimes. Some of these countries were once top destinations for British retirees, students, and professionals. Now, those same places have shut their borders, accusing the UK of everything from economic manipulation to cultural disrespect. Which country called Britain a security threat? Which one is asking dual citizens to pick a side or leave? And which nation just froze all British bank accounts overnight? This is more than travel news. It's a global reckoning, and the countdown has already begun. Number 10. Turkey. In 2025, Turkey made headlines by announcing a sweeping restriction on British nationals, effectively banning certain categories of UK citizens from entering or working in the country. The move came after a series of diplomatic clashes, most notably over Britain's support for Kurdish political movements, something Turkey has long labelled a national security threat. While it's not a full travel ban, the implications are serious. British journalists, aid workers, and members of UK-based non-governmental organisations, NGOs, are now either blacklisted or subjected to intense background checks. In fact, the Turkish Interior Ministry released a public statement confirming a list of over 300 UK nationals flagged as undesirable persons. For the average British traveller or student, visa approval times have tripled and rejection rates have skyrocketed. Even for those granted entry, movement is often limited to major cities like Istanbul and Ankara, with sensitive regions, particularly near the Syrian border, being strictly off limits. The British expat community in Turkey, especially those working in education, media, and humanitarian sectors, has been severely impacted. Many have already received notices to leave, while others face ongoing surveillance and restricted renewal of their residency permits. The Turkish government has framed the policy as a matter of sovereign protection, asserting their right to guard against foreign political influence. For now, it appears this ban is less about tourism and more about a deeper ideological and security divide. It's a clear message from Ankara. When it comes to national identity and regional control, foreign interference, especially from the UK, won't be tolerated. Number 9. Argentina. In a bold geopolitical move, Argentina has effectively banned new British immigrants in response to renewed tensions over the Falkland Islands dispute. The decades-old conflict has once again taken centre stage as the Argentine government ramps up its stance on what it calls British colonial persistence. The government recently passed a policy called the Sovereignty Protection Act, which directly prohibits UK nationals from acquiring residency, business licences, or land in strategic zones, particularly Patagonia and areas close to the South Atlantic coast. This isn't just symbolic. British expats who had settled in Argentina's southern regions are now facing forced relocation orders. Real estate contracts are being cancelled, and local banks have frozen property investments made by British citizens. Even British-led tourism companies are being deregistered and barred from operating. Argentina has made it clear. This is part of a broader plan to reassert control over areas it sees as vulnerable to foreign influence, especially from countries it accuses of historical occupation and exploitation. British tourists are still allowed entry, but under new monitoring systems, including enhanced border questioning and mandatory address registration for the duration of their stay. Those with dual UK-Argentine citizenship are being asked to declare primary allegiance or risk losing legal residency altogether. This isn't just about passports. It's about national pride, resource control, and decades of diplomatic friction boiling over. For Argentina, the Falklands conflict may never be over, and the British presence, even in peace, is now seen as a provocation. Number 8. Pakistan. In 2025, Pakistan took a dramatic and emotional step by imposing strict entry restrictions on British immigrants, citing a breakdown in diplomatic trust, concerns over espionage, and immigration inequality. The move sent shockwaves through communities with deep historical ties between the two nations. At the heart of this shift is a newly introduced protocol called the National Clearance Mandate. Under this law, any British citizen, especially those applying for residency, business visas, or long-term student permits, must now undergo military-grade background checks, including interviews with security agencies and even polygraph screenings. This policy has hit the British Pakistani diaspora especially hard. Many who had planned to reconnect with family, start businesses, or retire in ancestral towns now face denials, delays, or outright entry bans. Even those with dual nationality are being scrutinised like never before. The Pakistani government says the changes are meant to protect national sovereignty from foreign actors accused of meddling in internal affairs. British NGOs and education-based organisations are among the first to feel the impact. Many are now listed as restricted foreign entities. Additionally, British journalists, academics, and even influencers are being monitored for content deemed anti-state or culturally disruptive. This sharp pivot signals a rising sense of national assertiveness, especially among younger Pakistanis who view the post-colonial relationship with the UK as one-sided. The message is clear. Pakistan wants equal footing, not old hierarchies. Number 7. Iran. In 2025, Iran made headlines with its decision to halt all visa services for British citizens, citing escalating political tensions, spying allegations, and a growing wave of anti-Western sentiment. What once was a complicated relationship has now entered a phase of total mistrust. Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs labelled the UK a high-risk nation, accusing it of promoting instability in the Middle East through diplomatic posturing, media manipulation, and covert operations. As a result, British citizens, whether applying for tourist visas, business permits, or journalistic access, are now subject to indefinite suspension. What's even more alarming is the classification of dual nationals. British Iranian citizens are now seen as potential security threats. Dozens have already been detained, questioned, or placed under travel bans within the country. Many families are now separated, and consular support has become increasingly limited or denied. British NGOs, cultural foundations, and humanitarian efforts, once welcomed, are being shut down or heavily monitored. Even digital activity is under watch. Iranian authorities now scan social media for anti-regime content posted from UK-based users with Iranian heritage. This hardline approach marks Iran's push to assert self-sovereignty and resist what it perceives as Western interference. It's not just a ban, it's a symbolic firewall. For Iranians with British ties, the shift feels deeply personal. Iran isn't just closing its borders, it's sending a loud message. Loyalty to the state comes first, even over family roots or dual identity. Number 6. South Africa. In 2025, South Africa took a bold and highly symbolic stance by suspending long-term residency for British nationals, citing growing concerns over neo-colonial influence, economic imbalance, and cultural dominance. This isn't just about politics. It's about reclaiming national control in a post-colonial world. The shift began with a report by the South African Department of Home Affairs, highlighting disproportionate land ownership, corporate control, and education sector influence by foreign nationals, particularly from the UK. In response, the government enacted the Foreign Equity Realignment Act, a policy aimed at restricting British expansion in sectors deemed strategic or sensitive. British expats working in education, mining, and real estate are being asked to reapply under new scrutiny, with many facing rejection. For new applicants, visas are being denied en masse, and existing permits are being allowed to expire without renewal. At a cultural level, there's a rising sentiment among South Africans calling for homegrown opportunity. Influential voices in politics and media argue that the continued influx of British professionals limits the growth of local talent and sustains outdated power dynamics. British NGOs and educational institutions are also being forced to undergo compliance reviews, checking for colonial legacy practices in leadership, funding, and curriculum. Those failing to meet the criteria risk deregistration. This isn't just regulation, it's a redefinition of national identity. South Africa is demanding a reset, telling former powers, respect our autonomy or step aside. Number 5. Russia. In 2025, Russia imposed a full travel and immigration ban on British citizens, marking one of the most aggressive policy shifts in recent memory. The move follows years of escalating tensions with the UK over sanctions, military alliances, and cybersecurity conflicts. The Russian government officially declared the UK a hostile state, citing its support for NATO expansion, alleged interference in Eastern European affairs, and repeated accusations of Russian cyber attacks. As a result, no British nationals are currently permitted to enter Russia for work, study, or even tourism. British expats who were previously living in Russia have received deportation orders or been placed under surveillance until their exit. The ban also includes dual citizens who are being forced to choose allegiance or face legal complications. Those in sectors like engineering, energy, and education have seen contracts terminated overnight. Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has emphasized that this ban is both a defensive measure and a message to the West. Intervention comes with consequences. British companies operating in Russia have had assets frozen, licenses revoked, and are now being replaced with local or Chinese alternatives. Even cultural exchange programs, art institutions, and student scholarships tied to the UK have been scrapped. The British Council, once a symbol of soft diplomacy, has officially been banned from all operations. In Russia's eyes, the era of diplomatic subtlety is over. This ban isn't just about national security, it's a declaration of ideological separation. Number 4. China. In 2025, China officially added the United Kingdom to its list of non-cooperative states, resulting in a sweeping ban on British nationals entering the country under most visa categories. This dramatic escalation follows years of friction over cybersecurity allegations, trade disputes, and UK criticisms of human rights policies in regions like Xinjiang and Hong Kong. British journalists, researchers, and NGO workers are now blacklisted, with Chinese embassies globally instructed to deny entry applications from individuals linked to UK-based media or advocacy groups. Even tourist visas are being rejected without explanation, while student and work permits have been suspended indefinitely. In retaliation for the UK's support of Taiwan and its role in tech bans on Chinese companies like Huawei, China's new policy emphasises ideological risk control. British nationals are now viewed as potential agents of foreign influence or espionage. British businesses operating in China, particularly in finance, education, and consulting, have seen partnerships terminated, staff expelled, and contracts voided. The British Chamber of Commerce in China has gone silent, with members citing fear of retaliation for even speaking out. Dual citizens face an even murkier fate. Chinese law does not recognise dual nationality, and UK citizens with Chinese roots are now being told to renounce their second passport or risk detention. China's message is crystal clear. In this new geopolitical order, loyalty and neutrality are not enough. You're either an ally or a threat. And for now, Britain is firmly the latter. Number 3. Malaysia. In 2025, Malaysia joined the growing list of nations placing strict restrictions on British immigrants, but with a uniquely strategic and culturally driven approach. While not framed as an outright ban, the Malaysian government has implemented a series of barriers that make it virtually impossible for most British nationals to gain long-term entry. The shift began following rising anti-Western sentiment fueled by political factions, emphasizing cultural preservation, religious identity, and economic sovereignty. British applicants are now required to undergo mandatory pre-screening interviews, including detailed evaluations of their employment history, social affiliations, and online activity. A newly established Immigration Oversight Board was formed to review all applications from countries with what Malaysia deems a history of post-colonial overreach. Unsurprisingly, the UK topped that list. British professionals in sectors like finance, education, and media are facing the greatest pushback. Most work visa applications are now denied, citing a new rule requiring proof that no local talent is available for the job, a nearly impossible standard. Culturally, there's a growing narrative in Malaysia that British influence undermines Islamic values and national unity. This has led to increased scrutiny of British NGOs, especially those involved in human rights or educational reform. Even British retirees, once welcomed under the Malaysia My Second Home programme, are being quietly phased out through new financial thresholds and residency caps. The message from Kuala Lumpur is clear. Malaysia is ready to chart its own path, one that prioritises self-determination, cultural pride, and a break from the colonial shadow. Number 2. United Arab Emirates. In 2025, the United Arab Emirates made a stunning policy shift by placing major entry restrictions on British nationals in what many are calling a retaliatory diplomatic strike. The move comes after years of frustration over the UK's tightening of visa policies against Gulf state travellers and its shifting Middle Eastern alliances. At the core of the UAE's new regulations is a security directive issued by the Federal Authority for Identity and Citizenship, classifying British nationals as non-preferred applicants for most residency, employment, and investment visas. Approval rates have plummeted, and work permits for British professionals have become nearly impossible to secure. The ban is especially severe for those previously involved in government contracting, media, or non-profit sectors. Any affiliation with pro-Israel organisations, Western NGOs, or even military service in allied forces is grounds for automatic denial. British citizens currently living in the UAE have reported visa renewals being blocked, bank accounts frozen, and property purchases revoked. Even those married to UAE nationals are being asked to revalidate their residency under new loyalty protocols. Publicly, Emirati leaders say the decision reflects a desire to promote regional self-reliance, cultural integrity, and diplomatic fairness. Privately, analysts believe it's a direct message to London. Stop treating the Gulf as a one-way gate. For years, the UK was seen as a strategic partner. Today, it's seen as a strategic risk. And in the high-stakes diplomacy of the Middle East, trust, once lost, is rarely restored. Number 1. India. In 2025, India took a bold and symbolic step by imposing strict immigration limits on British citizens, reigniting historical debates with a modern twist. While not labelled as a ban, the new policies make it extremely difficult for UK nationals to obtain work, study, or residency visas. The change follows rising tensions between New Delhi and London over visa inequality, allegations of colonial-era arrogance, and growing frustration with how Indian applicants are treated by the UK's own immigration system. In a powerful statement, India's Ministry of External Affairs declared it was time to rebalance diplomatic fairness. The new rules require British nationals to submit detailed financial records, undergo in-person embassy interviews, and provide proof of language and cultural integration plans. These are similar to the hoops Indian citizens have long faced when applying for UK visas. Now mirrored back at British applicants, students and professionals are feeling the brunt. British universities collaborating with Indian institutions are being reassessed, and UK-based companies attempting to hire in India are now required to justify foreign hiring with local labour impact reports. Meanwhile, cultural influencers, journalists, and NGO workers from the UK are being labelled soft power agents, triggering visa rejections on grounds of ideological sensitivity. This isn't just bureaucracy, it's a message. India is done playing the colonial understudy. It's asserting its modern power with the same tools once used against it: paperwork, policy, and pride. What we're witnessing isn't just about immigration policies, it's a powerful shift in global identity, influence, and independence. These 10 countries didn't just close their doors on British citizens, they opened a deeper conversation about history, fairness, and the future of international respect, whether it's political retaliation, economic strategy, or cultural protection. Each move reflects a world where the UK's global footprint is being re-examined, and in some cases, erased. And let's be honest, this list may only be the beginning. More countries could follow, more borders could close, more lives could be uprooted overnight. So here's the question: is this justice or revenge? Is it about sovereignty, or is it just diplomacy turning personal? We want to know what you think. But don't just drop a great vid. Tell us which country's decision shocked you the most, or share your thoughts on whether this trend is justified or dangerous. Your comments actually help shape future videos and discussions here. We pour hours of research, writing, and editing into each video. So if you learned something new today, hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but means the world to us. And hey, your next favourite video might already be waiting. Check it out now. The UK is on the brink of a major crisis, and if you're planning to stay past 2026, you might be making a huge mistake. Housing prices have surged to record-breaking levels, leaving home ownership out of reach for most. Crime rates are skyrocketing, with violent crime on the rise in major cities. Meanwhile, the NHS is struggling to provide even basic care, and the economy is teetering on the edge of a meltdown. If you think things will get better, think again. The UK is facing the future of political instability, unaffordable living costs, and severe climate impacts. Every year it's becoming harder to find stability, opportunities, and peace of mind. But what if you could escape these challenges? What if you could find a place with better prospects, more safety, and a higher quality of life? This video reveals the shocking reasons why you might want to pack your bags before 2026 hits. Number 1. The economic decline. The UK economy is facing severe challenges, with inflation rising and wages stagnating, creating financial stress for many households. One of the most noticeable impacts is the soaring cost of living, especially in urban areas like London. Housing prices continue to skyrocket, making it harder for first-time buyers to secure a home, while rent prices increase, further squeezing renters. This economic pressure isn't limited to the housing market. Energy bills and the cost of essential goods and services are also rising sharply. The economic strain is pushing many to the brink. With salaries failing to keep up with the increasing cost of living, the typical middle-class family feels financially insecure. The widening gap between income and expenditure is forcing people to cut back on everyday expenses, impacting quality of life and long-term financial stability. For those on fixed incomes or low wages, the outlook is even bleaker. This economic uncertainty has led to a rise in mental health issues, with many struggling to cope with the stress of trying to maintain their lifestyles. As prices climb, families are increasingly unable to save for the future, further compounding the problem. For those considering a change, relocating to countries with stronger economic stability might offer a better future. Countries with lower costs of living, higher wages, and more affordable housing could provide better opportunities for financial growth and a higher quality of life. The economic decline in the UK is expected to persist, and it's crucial to plan ahead to safeguard your financial well-being. The struggle to keep up with rising costs is real, and if you're feeling the squeeze, now might be the time to look for better economic prospects elsewhere. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. Number 2. Political instability. The political climate in the UK has been turbulent, especially following Brexit. The country's decision to leave the European Union has triggered a series of challenges, not just in the economy, but in national governance. Political instability is becoming a defining feature of British life, with frequent leadership changes, government controversies, and public dissatisfaction. As the UK continues to grapple with the effects of Brexit, the ripple effects are evident in many aspects of daily life, from trade and immigration to national policies. Political instability creates an uncertain future. For businesses, the lack of clarity around trade agreements and the free movement of labour has made it harder to operate smoothly. The political landscape remains fragmented, making it difficult for the government to make long-term, cohesive decisions. If you've noticed growing uncertainty in how policies are formed and implemented, it's a sign of deeper issues within the political system. The polarisation of politics in the UK has also led to division among the population, whether it's debates about the role of the UK in global politics or domestic issues such as healthcare and education. Public discourse has become increasingly contentious. These divisions are affecting everyday life, and many people are left feeling disillusioned with the system. For those seeking stability and certainty, moving to a country with a more unified political system and less internal conflict could offer peace of mind. Countries with a strong political framework are better equipped to navigate global challenges and provide their citizens with a secure, predictable future. If you're tired of the political unrest and uncertainty, it may be time to consider relocating for a more stable environment. Political instability is not just a nuisance, it's a long-term challenge that could limit opportunities for growth and prosperity. Number 3. Healthcare strain. The UK's NHS, National Health Service, has long been regarded as a model of universal healthcare, but in recent years, it has been under increasing strain. With rising demand, an ageing population, and insufficient funding, the quality of healthcare services has started to decline. One of the most visible signs of this strain is the long waiting times for appointments and surgeries. Patients often wait months or even years to receive non-urgent care, making it difficult for people to get the medical attention they need in a timely manner. In addition to the waiting times, there is also a noticeable shortage of healthcare professionals. The UK has faced significant staffing challenges, with fewer doctors and nurses available to meet the growing needs of the population. This leads to overwhelmed staff, burnout, and sometimes subpar care. For those relying on the NHS, these issues can cause unnecessary stress and frustration, especially when health conditions worsen due to delayed treatment. Moreover, funding cuts have made it difficult for the NHS to modernise and expand its services to meet new health demands. The rising cost of medical supplies and the increasing number of patients requiring treatment have added to the financial burden, leaving many services underfunded. This system, which once offered relatively prompt care, is increasingly struggling to keep up with the needs of the population. If quick and efficient healthcare is important to you, it may be time to consider moving to countries with more reliable healthcare systems. Some countries offer private healthcare options that ensure faster access to treatments and services, while others invest more heavily in public healthcare, providing faster and better quality care. Given the ongoing strain on the UK's NHS, the prospect of better healthcare abroad may be worth considering for your well-being. Number 4. Climate change impact. As global temperatures rise, the UK is increasingly facing the direct consequences of climate change. Severe weather events such as flooding, heat waves, and storms have become more frequent and intense, putting communities at risk. The UK is particularly vulnerable due to its coastal areas, with cities like London, Birmingham, and others located near or on the coast, facing potential flooding from rising sea levels. These events not only pose immediate danger, but also threaten long-term property values and infrastructure. Regions that were once considered safe from natural disasters are now being impacted by extreme weather. Heat waves have become more common, affecting both urban areas and rural landscapes, leading to droughts and water shortages. In the future, the UK's agricultural sector could also suffer as unpredictable weather patterns affect crop production, leading to food shortages and increased prices for basic goods. The risks of climate-related events aren't just environmental. They have far-reaching social and economic consequences. Displacement, infrastructure damage, and rising costs due to weather-related damages could disrupt daily life in the UK. People may face increasing uncertainty regarding their homes and livelihoods as extreme weather events become more unpredictable and destructive. If you're concerned about the future impact of climate change, relocating to countries that are better prepared or less susceptible to these effects might be a wise decision. Some regions are investing heavily in climate adaptation strategies, creating a safer environment for their residents. These countries are implementing better flood defences, investing in sustainable agriculture, and reducing carbon emissions to mitigate the effects of global warming. Moving to a location with a lower risk of climate impact can provide you with long-term security and peace of mind. Number 5. Rising crime rates. Over the past decade, the UK has seen a concerning rise in crime rates, especially in larger cities. From violent crimes to petty theft, the safety of residents is becoming an increasing concern. The growing divide between rich and poor, economic hardship, and social instability are factors contributing to the rise in crime. Gang violence, drug-related offences, and burglary are becoming more common, leaving many feeling unsafe in their own neighbourhoods. As the pressure on police resources intensifies, the response to crime becomes less effective, leading to a sense of lawlessness in some areas. One of the most alarming trends is the rise in violent crime. Cities like London and Manchester have seen an uptick in incidents of knife crime and street violence. This not only threatens the safety of residents, but also negatively impacts local businesses and tourism, further hurting the economy, with police forces stretched thin and underfunded, ensuring public safety is becoming more difficult. In addition, cybercrime is on the rise, with fraud, identity theft, and hacking affecting more people every year. The UK's growing reliance on technology has opened up new avenues for criminal activity, and personal data is more vulnerable than ever before. For those seeking a safer environment, relocating to countries with lower crime rates and more effective law enforcement systems could be a wise move. Nations with a stronger focus on community policing and crime prevention strategies offer a greater sense of security. In these countries, the overall quality of life is often higher, with people feeling safer both in public spaces and in their homes. Moving to a place where crime rates are lower can help you and your family live with less fear, contributing to better mental health and overall well-being. Number 6. Deteriorating quality of life. The quality of life in the UK is facing a noticeable decline as various factors such as high cost of living, overcrowded cities, and increasing stress levels are taking their toll. One of the most significant challenges for residents is the cost of living, which has skyrocketed in recent years. From rising rent and properties prices to the increasing costs of groceries, transportation, and utilities, it's becoming more difficult for the average citizen to maintain a comfortable lifestyle. For many, financial strain has become a daily concern, which can lead to burnout and a lower quality of life. The urban environment also plays a key role in deteriorating life quality. Major cities, particularly London, are becoming increasingly overcrowded, leading to traffic congestion, long commutes, and a lack of personal space. With more people crammed into smaller areas, the pressure on public services, infrastructure, and housing becomes unbearable. This overcrowding leads to increased stress levels as residents try to navigate congested roads and crowded public transport systems. Moreover, the constant pressure of balancing work and personal life is affecting mental health. The fast-paced lifestyle in urban areas has left many people struggling with stress, anxiety, and fatigue. With limited time for recreation or relaxation, the pursuit of a healthy work-life balance seems increasingly unattainable. If you're seeking a slower pace of life and more affordable living conditions, relocating to quieter regions or countries where living costs are lower might improve your overall well-being. Countries that offer a more relaxed lifestyle, better work-life balance, and less congestion could help you rediscover peace of mind. Moving to a country that prioritizes quality of life over hustle and bustle might be the solution to reclaiming your happiness and reducing stress. Number 7. Educational system struggles. The UK's educational system is facing significant challenges that are affecting students, parents, and teachers alike. Funding cuts to schools, teacher shortages, and overcrowded classrooms are leading to a noticeable decline in the quality of education. As the system becomes increasingly stretched, many students are not receiving the level of individual attention they need to succeed. In particular, schools in low-income areas are often the hardest hit, with limited resources and struggling staff members. This lack of support can affect children's long-term academic performance and future opportunities. In addition to the staffing issues, the pressure on teachers has become unbearable. Many teachers are working long hours for relatively low pay, leading to burnout and high turnover rates. The recruitment and retention of qualified educators is an ongoing problem, further exacerbating the strain on the system. As a result, the overall quality of teaching is declining, and students are facing larger class sizes, fewer extracurricular opportunities, and less personalised attention. Furthermore, the UK's educational system is struggling to adapt to the demands of the modern world. With an increased focus on standardised testing, there is less emphasis on creative thinking and practical skills, which are essential for preparing students for the future. This outdated approach can leave students ill-prepared for the rapidly changing job market and society. If you're concerned about your child's education and future opportunities, moving to a country with a more innovative, well-funded education system might be a wise choice. Countries that prioritise student well-being, smaller class sizes, and more holistic education methods can offer a better learning environment for your children. With a stronger focus on education, these countries provide opportunities for personal and academic growth that might not be available in the UK. Investing in a better future for your children could mean looking beyond the UK's current educational struggles. Number 8. Property market crisis. The UK's property market is in the midst of a severe crisis, with skyrocketing house prices and limited affordable options for buyers. Over the past decade, the cost of purchasing a home has increased at an alarming rate, making it nearly impossible for many people, particularly first-time buyers, to get onto the property ladder. In cities like London, the prices of homes have far outpaced wage growth, leaving many individuals and families struggling to find a home that fits their budget. Even renting is becoming increasingly unaffordable, with rental prices soaring alongside property values. As property prices continue to rise, the dream of home ownership is becoming more distant for a growing number of people. For those looking to buy, inflated prices and the lack of affordable housing stock mean that many are forced into either renting for longer or moving further away from urban centres, increasing commute times and diminishing overall life satisfaction. Furthermore, the rising cost of home ownership can lead to significant financial strain, with many people spending a large portion of their income just to pay a mortgage or rent. The situation is further exacerbated by the UK's housing shortage, with the demand for homes far outstripping supply. Even as the government announces plans to build more houses, the reality is that new construction is slow, and the housing market remains highly competitive. Investors and developers are increasingly dominating the market, driving prices even higher and making it harder for individuals to purchase property. If you are feeling the pressure of the UK's unaffordable housing market, it may be time to look abroad. Countries with more affordable housing markets, lower property taxes, and greater availability of homes can provide the opportunity to own property without the crippling financial burden that has become the norm in the UK. Moving to a country with a stable property market could offer you the chance to secure a home without sacrificing your financial stability. Number 9. Brexit Consequences. The ongoing consequences of Brexit continue to have a profound impact on the UK, shaping everything from trade relationships to employment opportunities and even travel. Leaving the European Union has resulted in economic challenges, including reduced access to European markets, complicated customs procedures, and a decline in foreign investment. The restrictions on free movement have made it more difficult for UK citizens to travel, work, or study in EU countries, limiting opportunities for personal and professional growth. For those who rely on European trade, the post-Brexit environment has made business operations significantly more complex and costly. Tariffs, customs checks, and delays have disrupted supply chains, resulting in higher prices for goods and services. These issues are only expected to escalate as businesses continue to struggle with the red tape and the uncertainty of trade deals between the UK and EU countries. This situation has created a burden for companies that once thrived in the open EU market, resulting in fewer job opportunities and a stagnant economy in certain sectors. Additionally, the loss of the EU's labour market has led to a shortage of workers in various industries, particularly in healthcare, agriculture, and hospitality. As the UK struggles to fill essential roles with domestic labour, the impact on public services and businesses has become more pronounced. This shortage of workers, combined with rising costs, is pushing many UK residents to consider relocating to countries within the EU where employment opportunities are more accessible. If freedom of movement and easier access to European markets are crucial for your career or lifestyle, relocating to an EU country could offer significant advantages. Living and working within the EU would not only restore the ease of travel, but also provide access to better job prospects and higher economic stability. The consequences of Brexit are far-reaching, and if you feel it's limiting your opportunities, it may be time to explore the benefits of life outside the UK. Number 10. Limited career growth. The job market in the UK is showing signs of stagnation, with limited career growth in several key sectors, particularly in technology, manufacturing, and finance. As companies face economic challenges, they are becoming more cautious about hiring and investing in new talent. Automation, outsourcing, and economic uncertainty have led to a decrease in high-paying, long-term career opportunities for many professionals. For young professionals and recent graduates, the job market can feel particularly bleak, with fewer openings and increased competition for positions. Moreover, salaries in many industries are not keeping pace with inflation, meaning that even if you do manage to secure a job, your income may not be sufficient to meet the rising cost of living. This combination of stagnant wages and job market contraction makes it difficult for individuals to achieve long-term financial stability or career advancement in the UK. In addition, lack of innovation in certain sectors has left the UK trailing behind other countries when it comes to emerging industries. Tech startups and innovative businesses are flourishing in places like the United States, Germany, and Canada, while the UK's reliance on older industries and a cautious approach to innovation is limiting new career prospects. Professionals in creative fields, engineering, and science are finding that international markets offer more dynamic environments for career development. If you're seeking greater career opportunities, relocating to countries with booming tech sectors, expanding job markets, and a more forward-thinking approach to business could offer the growth you're missing in the UK. Countries with faster-growing economies and cutting-edge industries present more options for both career advancement and personal financial success. A move abroad could be the solution for breaking through career stagnation and securing your future growth. As we've explored, the challenges facing the UK in the coming years are vast and undeniable. From the economic decline to political instability, the country is grappling with issues that are only set to worsen. Rising crime rates, increased pressure on the healthcare system, and climate change impacts are all factors that significantly affect the quality of life for many. The dream of owning a home is slipping further away for many, with the property market crisis making it nearly impossible for first-time buyers to secure affordable housing. On top of that, the long-term consequences of Brexit continue to reshape the job market, trade, and international opportunities, leaving many feeling trapped and uncertain. The UK's educational system, once a pillar of pride, is struggling with funding cuts and teacher shortages, affecting the future of the next generation. For those seeking career growth, opportunities are shrinking, and the competitive job market is only making it harder to thrive. The strain on daily life, the soaring cost of living, and the overall decline in social stability are prompting more people to seek a better future elsewhere. Though the UK has its historical and cultural significance, it's clear that the situation is becoming increasingly difficult for its residents. For many, relocating to a country with a more stable economy, safer environment, and a higher quality of life could be the answer. The harsh reality is that staying in the UK beyond 2026 may mean compromising your financial, personal, and professional future. The future is uncertain, but exploring better options now could offer you a chance to rebuild a more secure and fulfilling life. Imagine working 40 hours a week and still not being able to turn the heating on, pay your rent, or feed your family properly. That's the harsh reality for millions in the UK right now. Wages are flat, prices are exploding, and everyday people are being pushed to the edge. The middle class is shrinking, and even those with stable jobs are living in fear of a single unexpected bill. What's really going on behind the scenes? This isn't just bad luck. It's a system designed to keep people barely getting by. Today, we're breaking down the 10 hidden forces making survival harder than ever, and why your paycheck just isn't enough anymore. Number 1. Stagnant wages as rising living costs. Across the UK, millions of workers find themselves caught in a frustrating financial trap. Even though they work full-time jobs, their earnings simply don't stretch far enough. That's because wages have barely increased over the past decade, especially when adjusted for inflation. According to the Office for National Statistics, average earnings have failed to keep pace with the cost of living, meaning people are effectively earning less in real terms than they did 10 years ago. This mismatch has created a silent crisis, one where workers are doing everything right but still falling behind. Meanwhile, the cost of essential goods and services is rising faster than ever. Groceries, energy bills, council tax, rent, and transportation are all eating up a larger chunk of people's paychecks. Imagine someone earning £1,800 per month after tax. If their rent takes £1,000, utilities £200, and food £300, there's almost nothing left. There's no breathing room for emergencies, savings, or leisure. The pressure is relentless. And when prices surge, like during the energy crisis, households have no cushion to absorb the shock. Everything becomes a choice between equally urgent needs: heating versus food, transport versus rent. This is why so many people in the UK feel like they're working just to survive, not to live. They're stuck in a cycle where working harder doesn't lead to more stability. They can't upskill because there's no money for training. They can't move to cheaper areas because travel becomes unaffordable. And they can't plan for the future because they're just trying to make it to payday. The paycheck isn't broken. It's just not built for today's reality. Till wages reflect the true cost of living, financial stress will remain the default for millions. Number 2. Soaring housing costs. For many in the UK, housing has become the biggest threat to financial stability. Over the past decade, rent and mortgage costs have surged far beyond wage growth, turning the basic need for shelter into a monthly financial burden. In cities like London, Manchester, and Bristol, average rents now swallow over 40% of a full-time worker's income. And it's not just urban areas. Rural communities are also seeing steep hikes due to limited supply and rising demand. As housing eats up more of the budget, there's less left for everything else. Even those trying to get on the property ladder face crushing obstacles. Deposit requirements, legal fees, and rising interest rates have priced out an entire generation. Owning a home, once seen as the foundation of financial security, now feels like a distant dream. Meanwhile, renters are stuck in a cycle of short-term contracts, sudden rent increases, and overcrowding. Some share homes with strangers well into their 30s or even 40s, Others are forced to relocate far from their workplaces just to afford rent, adding costly commutes to their financial strain. The impact isn't just economic, it's deeply personal. Families postpone having children, young adults delay independence, and mental health suffers under the weight of constant housing insecurity. There's no room for saving, no margin for error. A single missed paycheck can lead to eviction or debt spiral. The housing system, once a pathway to prosperity, now feels like a rigged game. Until affordable, stable housing becomes a reality, millions will continue to drain their paychecks just to keep a roof overhead. And with every year, that roof feels more temporary. Number 3. Gig economy and insecure work. The rise of the gig economy was sold as freedom. Flexible hours, independence, and being your own boss. But for millions in the UK, it has delivered the exact opposite. Unstable income, no benefits, and zero security. More than 4 million people now work in jobs with no guaranteed hours, such as delivery drivers, freelance creatives, or care workers. While the work may be plentiful, the pay is unpredictable, and that makes everyday life a constant juggling act between bills and uncertainty. Unlike traditional employment, gig workers don't get sick pay, holiday leave, or pensions. Many must chase invoices, constantly search for gigs, and work across multiple platforms to make ends meet. Apps and contracts may promise earnings of £15 an hour, but after expenses like fuel, equipment, and taxes, take-home pay is often below minimum wage. The result? People are working longer hours for less money, with no idea what their income will be next week. It's exhausting and unsustainable. What's more troubling is that this kind of precarious work is growing, especially in sectors like hospitality, delivery, healthcare, and even education. Younger workers, immigrants, are the most vulnerable. Without the safety net of stable employment, they can't access mortgages, credit, or long-term housing. They're excluded from the very systems that could help them escape poverty. This isn't just a side hustle anymore. It's a full-time struggle disguised as freedom. Till labour laws catch up and redefine what fair work looks like in the modern era, gig workers will continue to be overworked, underpaid, and overlooked. Number 4. That power has eroded significantly. Union membership has dropped by over 50% since the late 1970s, and with it, the collective strength of workers has faded. As unions lost influence, many employers gained the upper hand, offering minimal raises, cutting back on benefits, and pushing workloads to the limit. Without strong representation, workers today are often left to negotiate on their own, and that rarely leads to fair outcomes. In many sectors, especially retail, hospitality, and social care, employees are underpaid and overworked, yet feel powerless to speak up. Fear of losing a job or being replaced keeps people quiet, even when they're being treated unfairly. Meanwhile, large companies continue to post record profits, creating a growing sense that the system is rigged against the everyday worker. The absence of union support also means fewer protections during disputes, layoffs, or wage freezes. When inflation surges or working conditions deteriorate, there's no unified voice to demand change. For younger workers especially, many have never experienced the benefits of organised labour. And in the absence of that history, they may not realise just how much has been lost. Rebuilding worker solidarity is key to reversing this trend. Without it, employees will remain isolated and undervalued, stuck in jobs where they're told to be grateful just to be employed, even if that job doesn't pay enough to live on. Number 5. Benefit system gaps and sanctions. For many low-income workers in the UK, state benefits are not just a safety net, they're a lifeline. But that lifeline is fraying. Systems like universal credit were designed to simplify support, yet in practice, they often create more stress than security. Payments can be delayed for weeks, and the application process is filled with confusing rules, digital barriers, and inconsistent communication. For those already struggling, this can mean choosing between paying rent or buying food. What's worse is the harsh system of sanctions. If a recipient misses a meeting, submits paperwork late, or is deemed not to be trying hard enough to find work, their benefits can be cut off completely, sometimes for weeks or even months. These penalties often hit vulnerable individuals the hardest: single parents, people with disabilities, or those working unstable hours. In some cases, a small clerical mistake leads to a complete loss of income, throwing entire households into crisis. Despite working full-time or multiple jobs, many people still don't earn enough to live, and so they turn to benefits to fill the gap. But the system isn't designed for them. It assumes a clear divide between working and unemployed, when the reality is far more complex. This leaves working people feeling punished for needing help, even though they're doing everything they can, till the benefits system acknowledges the modern realities of work: part-time gigs, low hourly wages, and irregular shifts. It will continue to fail those it was meant to support. The result? A growing number of working people are one delay or sanction away from losing everything. Number 6. Debt dependency and interest traps. When your paycheck doesn't stretch far enough, borrowing becomes survival, not a choice. In the UK, millions rely on credit cards, overdrafts, payday loans, and buy now pay later schemes just to get through the month. What starts as a quick fix soon becomes a cycle of debt. As of recent reports, the average UK household debt, excluding mortgages, exceeds £15,000, and for many that number is growing every year. The problem isn't just the debt itself, it's the interest. Borrowing £500 might sound manageable, but with high interest rates, especially from payday lenders, that can spiral into hundreds more owed in just weeks. Every month, a portion of income goes straight to minimum repayments, leaving even less for food, bills, or rent. It becomes a cruel loop. The less you earn, the more you borrow. And the more you borrow, the less you can ever catch up. Financial freedom feels impossible when every paycheck is already spoken for. And the psychological toll is enormous. Constant calls from creditors, fear of checking your bank account, or the shame of asking family for help. These experiences are common but rarely talked about. Debt is not just a financial issue, it's a mental health crisis too. The pressure builds quietly until it explodes into panic, anxiety, or depression. Worse still, debt can block access to housing, credit, or job opportunities, locking people into poverty long term. Till wages rise and affordable credit alternatives are prioritized, millions will remain trapped in a system where they're not living off their income. They're just trying to stay afloat in a sea of repayments. Number 7. Rising childcare costs. For working parents in the UK, childcare isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. But with some of the highest childcare costs in Europe, it often feels more like a punishment. In many cases, it's actually cheaper to stay home than to work. A full-time nursery placement for one child can cost £1,000 per month or more, which often eats up half or more of a parent's salary, especially for those in low-wage jobs. And for parents with multiple children, those costs multiply rapidly. This creates a lose-lose situation. Parents are forced to choose between career and care, even if they want to work. For many mothers in particular, the decision to leave the workforce becomes financial, not personal. And once they're out, it's incredibly difficult to re-enter later. Skills become outdated, confidence drops, and gaps in employment can hurt future job prospects. In the meantime, entire families live off one modest income, or struggle to survive it on benefits, simply because childcare is unaffordable. The issue affects not just individuals, but the broader economy. Fewer parents working means less tax revenue, less economic growth, and more reliance on state support. It also deepens inequality, especially among single parents and low-income families who have the least flexibility. Without affordable childcare, opportunity is limited by default. The system penalises people who want to work and contribute. Real solutions, like state-subsidised childcare, flexible work policies, or better parental leave, are long overdue. Till then, families will continue to sacrifice income, careers, and independence simply to ensure their children are cared for. Number 8. Transportation expenses. Getting to work shouldn't feel like a luxury, but for many in the UK, transportation costs are draining their income just as fast as rent or bills. The UK has some of the highest rail fares in Europe, and even bus or underground travel can add up quickly. A monthly train pass from a commuter town to London can cost £300 to £500. That's a huge chunk of a modest paycheck, just to show up at work. For those without access to reliable public transport, the alternative is driving. But that's no better. Petrol prices, insurance premiums, and parking fees all stack up. In rural areas where buses are infrequent or non-existent, owning a car isn't optional. It's essential. But keeping that car on the road can eat into an already tight budget. And when repairs are needed, that's often money people just don't have, leading to missed work and lost income. It becomes a cruel irony. People move farther away from city centres to find cheaper housing, only to end up paying more just to reach their jobs. This forces tough trade-offs, longer commutes, less time with family, and more exhaustion, all for the chance to keep a job that barely pays the bills. For low-income workers, especially those on shifts or in part-time roles, there's little support. Travel cards, discounts, or employer subsidies are rare. And without reliable, affordable transport, economic mobility stalls. The system makes working harder than it needs to be. Till transport becomes affordable, efficient, and fair, many will continue to spend disproportionate amounts of their paycheck just to earn that paycheck in the first place. Number 9. Mental health and financial stress. Living paycheck to paycheck doesn't just hurt your bank account, it takes a deep toll on your mental health. When every bill feels like a threat, and every unexpected cost pushes you to the edge, it creates chronic stress. Millions of people across the UK are experiencing anxiety, depression, and burnout, not because they're irresponsible, but because they're constantly battling financial instability. That kind of stress doesn't stop when the workday ends. It follows them home, into their relationships, and into their sleep. Scientific studies have shown that financial insecurity is one of the leading causes of mental health problems. People experiencing money stress are more likely to suffer from insomnia, panic attacks, and even suicidal thoughts. The pressure is constant. How do you cover rent, feed your kids, pay off debts, and somehow still save for emergencies? It feels impossible, and when your mental health breaks down, it affects your ability to work, making the cycle even harder to escape. One missed shift can lead to missed income, which leads to more stress, and the spiral continues. What makes it worse is that many people suffer in silence. There's still stigma around talking about both money and mental health. And mental health services? They're often underfunded and overwhelmed, with waiting lists that stretch for months. This leaves people managing serious emotional burdens without the support they need. Until we treat financial well-being and mental health as connected issues, we're only addressing half the problem. True recovery doesn't just require therapy or medication. It requires economic security, dignity at work, and the chance to live without fear every time a bill comes through the door. Number 10. Lack of financial education. You can't manage what you were never taught. Across the UK, millions of people leave school with little to no understanding of how to handle money. Budgeting, saving, interest rates, credit scores, debt management, and taxes. These are crucial life skills, yet they're rarely covered in a meaningful way in the education system. Without that knowledge, people are left to learn through trial and error, often with serious financial consequences. As adults, many find themselves overwhelmed by bills, overdrafts, loan agreements, and contracts they don't fully understand. It's not because they're careless, it's because no one showed them how to navigate the financial system. And unfortunately, the world of finance can be intentionally complicated. Banking terms, credit agreements, and even government support programs are filled with jargon that makes it easy to feel lost. When people don't understand their options, they can't make informed choices. And that leaves them vulnerable to predatory lenders, risky purchases, and poor planning. This gap in education doesn't just hurt individuals, it affects entire communities. Without a foundation in financial literacy, people are more likely to stay in debt, miss out on saving opportunities, and pass down the same struggles to the next generation. The tools for financial empowerment exist: budgeting apps, online courses, community workshops. But most people don't know where to start. Making financial education a core part of school curriculums and adult life is not just helpful, it's necessary. Because if you don't know how to make your money work, it will always work against you. Till knowledge becomes as accessible as credit cards, too many will stay stuck in a system they were never prepared for. Millions in the UK are trapped in a system that tells them to work harder while rewarding them with less. Low wages, rising costs, broken benefits, and insecure jobs are not individual failures. They are systemic designs that benefit the few while leaving the many behind. Each of the 10 reasons we explored today doesn't stand alone. They connect, stack, and compound into a life that feels impossible to escape. And while some might say, just budget better, or work more hours, that ignores the brutal truth. No amount of personal effort can fix a broken economy. But here's the thing. Change starts with awareness. When more people see how deep this problem runs, the pressure to demand real reform grows. Maybe that's better policy. Maybe it's stronger unions. Or maybe it's just having these honest conversations out in the open, where they can't be ignored anymore. If this video hit close to home, you're not alone, and you're not the problem. The system is. We want to hear from you. What's the one thing that makes your paycheck disappear every month? Drop it in the comments. You might be surprised how many others are facing the same struggles. If this video gave you insight, opened your eyes, or simply made you feel seen, please support us with a like and subscribe to our channel. It's just one click, but it means everything to us. We pour real time, research, and care into each video to make stories like yours heard. And if you haven't seen our last video, go check it out. It breaks down another side of modern survival you don't want to miss. £1 today might not be worth £1 tomorrow. In fact, the pound has lost over 20% of its value against the dollar in just the past few years. And some experts warn it could crash overnight. Imagine waking up to headlines of bank runs, skyrocketing prices, and a pound spiraling into chaos. It's not just a nightmare scenario. It's a real possibility driven by invisible forces most people don't even notice. From political shocks and global wars to sudden cyber attacks and financial gambles, the pound sits on a fragile edge. What if your savings, salary, or travel plans were instantly hit? The clues are already around us. And if you're not watching closely, the pound's fall could catch you off guard. Number 1. Global market volatility. The British pound is deeply tied to global economic movements. When major global events shake financial confidence, like a pandemic, geopolitical conflict, or a crash in oil prices, currencies around the world feel the heat. The UK is especially sensitive because it trades heavily with international partners. When global uncertainty rises, investors often flock to safe haven currencies like the US dollar, leaving the pound vulnerable to sudden drops. For example, during the Ukraine conflict in 2022, energy prices spiked and inflation surged, triggering a loss of confidence in the pound almost overnight. Even distant events can send ripples through the UK economy. A stock market collapse in Asia, a banking crisis in Europe, or disruptions in global supply chains can all reduce the perceived stability of the pound. These events make investors nervous and more likely to sell off pounds in favour of more stable assets. That sudden sell-off increases supply, decreases demand, and causes the pound to fall rapidly. It's not just theory, it's a cycle we've seen play out repeatedly in global financial history. The danger lies in the speed. Currency markets operate 24/7, and digital trading means moves can happen instantly. The pound could lose value overnight before the average person even wakes up. Watching the headlines isn't just about staying informed. It's about protecting your financial future. Every Brit should understand that events on the other side of the world can reach their bank account through a falling pound. A single global tremor, if strong enough, can shake the entire system and set off a chain reaction of panic, pulling the pound down with it. Keeping an eye on the bigger picture isn't paranoia, it's preparation. Number 2. Bank of England policy missteps. The Bank of England (BOE) holds immense power over the pound. Its decisions on interest rates, quantitative easing, and monetary policy can strengthen or weaken the currency in a matter of hours. But when the BOE makes the wrong move or sends mixed signals, it can trigger panic in the markets. For example, if the bank raises interest rates too aggressively during a slowdown, it might choke growth and scare investors. On the other hand, cutting rates too quickly during inflation could make the pound look weak and unstable. A perfect historical example is Black Wednesday in 1992. The UK government tried to prop up the pound to keep it in the European exchange rate mechanism. Despite massive efforts and sending billions in reserves, the market didn't believe the pound was sustainable at that level. It collapsed, and the government was forced to withdraw. That crisis wasn't caused by war or debt. It was a direct result of poor policy judgment and lost investor confidence. And it happened within a single day. When people feel that the UK's financial leadership is uncertain or reactive instead of proactive, they lose trust in the pound. The world watches every BOE announcement and every statement from the governor. A poorly timed remark can spark currency sell-offs. If major investors begin to believe that the BOE has lost control, they'll act quickly to protect their assets. The pound doesn't fall slowly in these moments. It drops sharply and without warning. That's why clear, confident policy matters. It's not just economic theory. It's the foundation of the pound's credibility. When that's shaken, the effects are immediate and hard to reverse. Number 3. Political instability. Political chaos can send shockwaves through the currency markets, and the British pound is no exception. When the UK faces sudden elections, fragile coalitions, or dramatic leadership changes, investor confidence can crumble. The pound thrives on stability, and when the government looks unpredictable, the currency reflects that uncertainty almost instantly. A vivid example is the brief tenure of Liz Truss in 2022. Where her government's mini-budget announcement, lacking clarity and fiscal responsibility, sparked panic in the bond market and caused the pound to plunge to historic lows. The market doesn't wait for debates to end or policies to be explained. If global investors sense that the UK's political environment is chaotic, they'll pull their money out fast. This sudden capital flight weakens the pound dramatically. Political risks include more than just elections. They also involve major policy shifts, Brexit-type referendums, and escalating labour strikes. Anything that threatens to disrupt economic continuity puts downward pressure on the currency. Investors are not just watching what happens, they're watching how the government responds under pressure. Imagine the pound as a reflection of national confidence. If the government appears divided, confused, or slow to act, that reflection cracks. International markets respond in real time to speeches, resignations, and parliamentary votes. In a hyper-connected world, even rumours of instability can trigger rapid sell-offs. The pound could be strong at noon and rattled by nightfall. That's how closely political strength and currency strength are tied. For ordinary Britons, this means politics isn't just news. It's a direct line to the value of your earnings, savings, and future. Number 4. Surging national debt. When a country's national debt rises faster than its ability to repay, it sends a troubling signal to the global market, and the pound often takes the first hit. The UK's debt-to-GDP ratio has been climbing steadily, especially following expensive interventions like pandemic support packages and energy subsidies. High debt levels raise concerns about the government's ability to manage its finances in the long run. Investors begin to question whether the UK will need to borrow even more, potentially devaluing the pound to cover costs. Debt itself isn't inherently bad, but it becomes dangerous when interest payments begin to consume a large share of national income. Think of it like a household. Having a mortgage is fine, but if you're also juggling credit cards and loans with high interest, your financial picture looks less secure. The same logic applies to countries. When investors sense the UK is walking a fiscal tightrope, they demand higher returns to lend money, raising borrowing costs and pressuring the currency further. If confidence drops too low, Even domestic investors may start moving funds to more stable economies. There's also the risk of a downgrade by credit rating agencies. When institutions like Moody's or Fitch lower the UK's credit rating, it acts like a red flag to the global market. That signal can prompt mass exits from pound-denominated assets, weakening the currency overnight. The pound doesn't operate in isolation. It reflects how the world sees Britain's economic health. As national debt rises and credibility dips, the pound's vulnerability grows. For everyday people, this means a weaker pound could drive up prices on imports, fuel, and essentials, shrinking purchasing power in real terms. Number 5. Trade imbalances. A trade imbalance occurs when a country imports more than it exports, and the UK has been running persistent deficits for years. This means more pounds are flowing out to pay for foreign goods than are coming in through sales of British products. Over time, this weakens demand for the pound on global markets. When international buyers don't need to purchase pounds to buy British goods, the currency becomes less valuable. It's a slow burn that can lead to a sharp drop if market sentiment shifts quickly. The issue has been worsened by Brexit, which disrupted established trade relationships and added friction at borders. Delays, extra paperwork, and new tariffs have made UK exports less competitive. Meanwhile, the UK still heavily depends on imports for energy, technology, food, and more. That constant outflow of money puts pressure on the pound, especially when trade deals aren't favourable or flexible. A weakened pound makes imported goods more expensive, which then feeds into inflation, impacting everyday items from petrol to groceries. Currency traders watch the balance of payments closely. If they see the UK buying more than it sells without a strategy to reverse the trend, they may bet against the pound. In markets driven by expectations, this can cause sharp, speculative sell-offs. That's when a trade deficit transforms from a long-term concern into an overnight crisis. The pound can suddenly tumble, driven not just by numbers, but by the belief that Britain is buying too much and selling too little. For regular Britons, the result is immediate: higher costs, shrinking travel budgets, and increased pressure on household income. Understanding trade imbalances isn't just for economists, it's for anyone who buys food, fills a tank, or shops online. Number 6. Over-reliance on financial services. The UK economy leans heavily on its financial sector, with the City of London serving as a global hub for banking, insurance, and investment. While this has brought enormous wealth, it also creates vulnerability. When one sector dominates, any shock to that sector can send tremors through the entire economy and the pound. If international confidence in the UK's financial services wavers, so does faith in the currency that underpins it. This over-reliance becomes dangerous during global financial stress or regulatory crackdowns. Diversification is what protects most economies. Countries with strong manufacturing, agriculture, or tech industries can absorb shocks in one area with stability in another. The UK, however, has gradually shifted away from producing goods and towards selling services. While profitable, this model is sensitive to things like market crashes, corporate scandals, or international tax reforms. A sudden drop in financial activity can reduce demand for the pound, as fewer people need it to interact with UK-based services. This fragility isn't just hypothetical. Think of it like building a table with one strong leg and 3 weak ones. If that one leg is kicked, the whole structure collapses. If London's financial reputation takes a hit through a major scandal, cyber attack, or capital outflow, there's no backup industry strong enough to support the pound's value. For the everyday person, this could mean fewer job opportunities, decreased investment in public services, and higher costs on everything priced in foreign currency. The pound's health depends on economic balance, and right now, that balance is tilted too far in one direction. If that leg gives out, the fall could be fast and steep. Number 7. Speculative attacks by hedge funds. One of the most underestimated threats to the British pound is the power of speculative attacks, aggressive moves by hedge funds and currency traders betting against the pound's strength. These attacks aren't just theory, they've happened before, with devastating results. In 1992, George Soros famously broke the Bank of England by betting that the pound was overvalued in the European Exchange Rate Mechanism, ERM. The UK government spent billions trying to defend the pound, but it wasn't enough. Within hours, the pound crashed, and the UK was forced to withdraw from the ERM. Fast forward to today, and the tools are faster, bigger, and more precise. With high-frequency trading algorithms, billions can be moved in milliseconds. If financial markets perceive the UK as weak due to poor economic data, unstable politics, or rising debt, hedge funds may strike again. A few major firms shorting the pound simultaneously can trigger a domino effect, where others follow, amplifying the damage. These aren't slow declines, they're sharp, market-moving events that happen in real time, often outside the control of central banks. The danger is that these attacks often begin with whispers, leaked reports, rumours, or insider moves. By the time the public sees headlines, the damage may already be done. A rapid depreciation affects everything. Mortgage rates spike, imports cost more, and foreign investment dries up. The economy doesn't just slow down, it contracts under pressure. That's why every Brit should understand. The pound isn't just at risk from policy mistakes or global turmoil. It's also a target. In the hands of powerful market players, confidence can be manipulated, and when trust in the pound wavers, it doesn't fall alone. It crashes. Watching for these signs could mean the difference between reacting late or preparing early. Number 8. Falling consumer and business confidence. The strength of a currency isn't just based on numbers. It's also shaped by confidence. When consumers feel uncertain about the future, they cut back on spending. When businesses feel nervous, they delay investment and hiring. These behaviours ripple through the economy, slowing growth and creating a climate of caution and hesitation. If confidence falls too far, it signals trouble to global markets, and the pound can begin to slide, even if no single event triggered the shift. This kind of decline is often subtle at first. Surveys from institutions like the Office for National Statistics, ONS, or Purchasing Managers Index, PMI, reports give early warnings. They measure how optimistic people and businesses feel about the economy. A few weak readings may not seem like a crisis, but consistent drops start to shape investor expectations. If they believe Britain is entering a downturn, they begin adjusting their portfolios, often by selling off pounds in favour of stronger, more stable currencies. Confidence is fragile and can collapse faster than actual economic indicators. A rise in unemployment, a spike in energy bills, or fears over interest rates can all chip away at optimism. As fear builds, people and companies act cautiously, unintentionally reinforcing the slowdown. It becomes a loop. Fear leads to less spending weakens the economy, and a weaker economy damages the pound. For everyday people, a drop in confidence means more than gloomy headlines. It affects job security, loan approvals, and everyday costs. Recognizing these signs early isn't just for economists. It's a form of financial self-defense. Understanding how moods move money helps explain why the pound can suddenly fall without warning. Number 9. Global shift away from the pound. For decades, the British pound has held a strong position in global finance, but that status is no longer guaranteed. The world is gradually shifting towards a multipolar currency system, where the dominance of a few currencies is challenged by emerging markets' digital assets and alternative trade arrangements. Countries like China, Russia, and members of the BRICS alliance are pushing to settle trade in yuan, rupees, or even gold-backed currencies, bypassing the pound altogether. When global demand for the pound drops, so does its value. This shift is subtle but powerful. Central banks around the world hold reserves in foreign currencies, and for a long time, the pound was a reliable store of value. But in recent years, some have begun diversifying away from the pound and even the euro, favouring alternatives like the US dollar, yuan, or cryptocurrencies. When reserve status declines, demand for the currency falls globally. The pound no longer enjoys automatic trust. It must compete for relevance in a rapidly changing financial landscape. The impact can be sudden. A major trade deal between two large economies, decided in non-sterling currencies, could signal a turning point. If other nations follow, the pound risks becoming less central in global trade, which leads to lower demand, less liquidity, and a weaker exchange rate. For regular Britons, this translates to reduced global purchasing power, costlier international travel, and higher prices for imported goods. The shift may feel distant, but its effects are close to home. Staying informed about how the world uses money is essential, because when the global economy turns the page, the pound may not be on the front cover anymore. Number 10. Technological disruption and cyber threats. In today's digital world, the financial system is more connected and more vulnerable than ever. The UK's banking and currency infrastructure relies heavily on digital networks, making it a potential target for cyber attacks and technological failures. A coordinated hack on a major UK bank or a breach of Bank of England systems could shake public and global trust in an instant. If people can't access their accounts or trading platforms are frozen, the result is panic, and panic can send the pound into freefall. It's not just direct attacks. Fintech disruptions, including system errors in high-frequency trading platforms or glitches in payment systems like SWIFT, can create temporary chaos. In highly sensitive currency markets, even a short disruption can lead to billions in losses. Once confidence in the system is lost, even briefly, traders react by pulling out. The result? A rapid sell-off of the pound that can cascade in hours, fueled by fear and uncertainty. Imagine waking up to find your banking app down and headlines screaming about system-wide failures. Markets don't wait for explanations. Adding to the risk is the rise of digital currencies. As more governments explore central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and private firms promote crypto alternatives, traditional currencies like the pound face competition. If a major global player successfully launches a widely accepted digital currency, it could reduce the pound's international usage, especially in trade and reserves. That shift wouldn't take years. It could unfold in weeks. For everyday Britons, this kind of disruption could affect payments, savings access, and investment security. The threat isn't science fiction. It's a growing possibility in a world where financial systems are as vulnerable as they are fast. The British pound is more than just a symbol on a banknote. It's a living, breathing measure of the country's economic health, political stability, and global trust. What we've uncovered isn't fear-mongering, it's a reality check. From global tensions and rising debt to technological threats and investor psychology, the pound is under pressure from every direction. Any one of these 10 forces could strike unexpectedly, but if several hit at once, that's when cracks become collapse. The truth is, currency crashes rarely come with warnings. They unfold in boardrooms, in trading terminals, in headlines you scroll past. While in some moment the pound seems steady, the next it's losing ground fast. And while it might feel like a problem for economists or politicians, the fallout is painfully personal. Higher prices, lower savings value, expensive travel, and reduced buying power. These are the everyday effects of a sudden drop. But knowing is power. By staying informed, you're better prepared. You can make smarter financial decisions, question policies, and protect what you've worked hard for. The pound might be vulnerable, but that doesn't mean you have to be. Now we want to hear from you. Which of these risks do you think is most urgent? Have you ever personally felt the impact of a falling pound? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone. And if you're serious about staying financially sharp, don't miss our previous video. It dives deep into the hidden costs draining your income every month. We put a lot of heart, time, and research into these videos to bring you something that actually helps. So if you found value here, please subscribe. It's just one click for you, but it means everything to us.